My grandfather built the barn in 1958. It survived storms, droughts, and decades of ranch work. To my family, it wasn't just a building. It was part of our history. One morning, I returned from a business trip. Everything seemed normal at first. The fences looked fine. The cattle were exactly where they should be. Then I saw the barn. Nearly half of it had been repainted overnight. The historic red exterior was disappearing. And nobody had asked permission. The fresh paint stood out immediately. Decades of history had been covered in a single night. Someone had spent hours doing this, and they clearly believed they had authority. A sign attached to the wall explained everything. The HOA had labeled the barn non-compliant. According to them, the repainting was an improvement. According to me, it was trespassing. A few minutes later, Melissa Grant arrived. She looked extremely pleased with herself. The moment she stepped out, she started giving orders, like the ranch belonged to her. Melissa claimed the barn was visible from HOA property. Because of that, she believed HOA standards applied. It was one of the strangest arguments I'd ever heard, and she completely believed it. I showed her property maps. She barely glanced at them. Then she repeated the same demand. The barn will remain HOA approved. Instead of arguing, I called the county survey office. There was something I wanted verified, something involving an old boundary line and a forgotten survey. The next morning, surveyors arrived. Melissa seemed confused. She expected another argument. Instead, she was about to get a history lesson. The survey team immediately started checking old boundary markers. Some hadn't been examined in decades. The original ranch records were surprisingly detailed, and they revealed something important. Mark Benson compared the original survey documents with current maps. Every measurement matched perfectly. The property lines were exactly where my grandfather had placed them. The HOA had assumed otherwise. For the first time, Melissa stopped giving orders. Instead, she started asking questions. The survey crew wasn't telling her much, and that made her nervous. The old survey records contained a forgotten easement adjustment. Most people never noticed it, but that adjustment changed how the property boundaries worked, and it changed them significantly. As the morning continued, new stakes appeared across the pasture. Melissa couldn't understand what was happening, but I already knew. The survey was confirming every detail. By lunchtime, the survey crew had completed most of their work. The results confirmed the original ranch records. Every major boundary matched perfectly. But one forgotten detail changed everything. Decades earlier, my grandfather had negotiated a boundary adjustment. The change was properly recorded, but later HOA planners had overlooked it. That mistake affected much more than the barn. The corrected survey line crossed several HOA improvements. Landscaping, decorative fencing, and entry features were affected. None of them were where the HOA thought they were. Melissa's confidence disappeared quickly. Melissa demanded a second review. The surveyors checked everything again. The measurements stayed exactly the same. The records weren't changing. Word spread through the HOA board. Several members came to see the survey results themselves. They expected confusion. Instead, they found clear evidence. The surveyor carefully explained every line and measurement. Board members followed along on the maps. Questions quickly turned into concerns. The situation was larger than anyone expected. That evening, the HOA called an emergency meeting. Everyone wanted answers. The barn was no longer the main issue. Now, they were worried about the boundary errors. I brought copies of every historic document. The records stretched back generations. Each one supported the survey findings. The evidence was impossible to ignore. Melissa argued that the HOA acted in good faith. Some board members agreed. Others pointed out that nobody had verified ownership first. The room grew increasingly divided. To settle the issue completely, county officials conducted a final review. Every deed, easement, and survey was examined. The process took several days. The outcome would be final. The final report arrived at the end of the week. It confirmed the survey's findings in full. The property boundaries were legally correct. The dispute was officially resolved. The board reviewed the decision carefully. No one challenged the findings. The records were clear. The matter was no longer debatable. With ownership confirmed, restoration work began. The fresh white paint was removed. The original red finish slowly returned. The barn finally started looking like itself again. The restoration took patience. Every section was carefully repaired. Years of history were preserved. The barn deserved nothing less. Meanwhile, the HOA board focused on internal questions. Members wanted better oversight. Future decisions would require stricter review. Trust needed to be rebuilt. A few weeks later, the barn looked exactly as it should. The red would glow in the evening sunlight. My grandfather would have recognized it immediately. That meant everything to me. The survey had done more than settle a dispute. It reminded everyone why property records matter. Facts replace assumptions. And the ranch remained exactly where it belonged.